Good evening. We'll now call the business session of March 17th, 2020 to order at 6:02 p.m. Welcome to our guests. We provide an opportunity for the public to address the City Council on any agenda item or during the hearing of visitors portion of the agenda. On items other than public hearings, speakers will be allotted one 3-minute presentation regardless of the number of agenda items the speaker wishes to address. If you are here to speak and haven't filled out a registration card, please see the City Secretary staff at the registration table outside the auditorium so that staff can contact you if necessary. If you have handouts, please let us know at the beginning of your presentation and staff will distribute those to the council. If you are unable to approach the podium due to physical limitations, a microphone is available to be brought to you. When called to the podium, please state your name and address. For the record, each speaker must limit comments to 3 minutes. Following the declaration that was made earlier today, we will be suspending the rule allowing a speaker on behalf of a group of 10 or more individuals present to be given 10 minutes to address the council. For any person addressing the council through the use of a translator, the speaking time will be doubled to accommodate the translation services. While public discourse is very important to the council, we have to maintain order in the meeting so that all persons may be heard and city business may be conducted. If so directed by me, the Sergeant at Arms shall remove from the council meeting any person who, while addressing the city council or while attending the city council meeting, makes personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks, becomes boisterous, or makes unauthorized remarks from the audience, claps hands, stomps feet, whistles, yells, or makes similar demonstrations. Thank you, and now please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm looking at the seating and whether we're getting people in the proper spacing for social distancing. Is everybody okay where we are? Some of it looks a little wonky.
Yeah, if you're in a seat with a sign, right?
There we go. I think that's part of it. All right. First item of business is to consider and approve the minutes of the March 3rd, 2020 meeting. Are there any changes? Those will stand approved as written. We have 11 public hearings tonight. The first is public hearing 2020-175. Mr. Peters.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider a resolution approving the following subdivision plats. A preliminary plat of the Springs Edition, ETJ, a preliminary plat of the New Road Development Edition, lots 1 through 3, block 1, a final plat of the South Fork Edition, phase 20, and final plat of the South Fork Edition, phase 23, lot 2, block 19. By a vote of 8-0, Plan Commission recommended that the plats be approved.
Any questions for staff? We'll open a public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak on this item? I'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
I will move approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes.
Aye.
Meek.
Yes.
Kennard.
Yes.
Sabido.
Yes.
Fairfield.
Yes.
Deaver.
Yes, that motion carries. Public hearing 2020-176.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider a resolution granting a special permit to Katrina Dyer for a short-term rental type 2 in R1B zoning district on property described as Lot 7, Block B of the Pewitt BA Edition, known as 3425 Pewitt Drive. By a vote of 8-0, Plan Commission recommended approval of the request based on the following findings. That the proposed use is consistent with the comprehensive plan, that the proposed use is compatible with appropriate and orderly development of the area which is located, that the proposed use would be not more objectionable to neighboring properties because of traffic congestion, noise, fumes, vibrations, or any other characteristics than any use permitted in the zoning district without the grant of the special exception, and that available community facilities and services, including the road system providing access to the proposed use, are adequate for the proposed use.
Okay, any questions for staff? I'll open a public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak on this item? I'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Motion for approval. Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes.
Aye.
Meek.
Yes.
Kennard.
Yes.
Sabido.
Yes.
Fairfield.
Yes.
Deaver.
Yes, that motion carries. Public hearing 2020-177.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider a resolution granting a special permit to Back Arrow Investments LLC for a short-term rental type 2 in R1B zoning district on property described as lots 3 and 4, block 13 of the Highland Edition, known as 3107 Lasker Avenue. We did receive a request from the applicant to continue this hearing until the April 7th, 2020 City Council meeting. The applicant was unable to attend the meeting and would like to be present for the public hearing. And staff does recommend approval of that continuance. Council will need to act on that, have a public hearing and act on that first. And then if council decides not to approve the continuance, we'll move into the case.
Okay, so I will open a public hearing specifically for the purpose of considering whether to grant a continuance on this. I have a couple of cards here. It looks like Matthew Whitself, are you here to speak in favor of the continuance? Are you here to speak in favor of the continuance? If so, if you would come down to the podium, please. If you would give your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, my name is William David Witzel. I live at 431 Woodfall Drive, Woodway, Texas, 76712. I am representing and speaking for Black Arrow, and I would like to request to continue the hearing on April 7th, 2020.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you. I have a card here for Matthew Polk. Are you wanting to speak against the continuance or just the request for continuance? Okay. Is there anyone here who would like to speak against the continuance? If you would like to speak against the continuance, please come forward.
Specifically related, Matthew Polk, 2928 Cumberland Avenue, Waco, Texas, 76707. Specifically with regard to the continuance, there was a significant showing by local residents at the Plan Commission last month. There are a number of residents looking to speak against this public hearing at this current meeting. So you're asking us, local residents, local property owners, folks committed to the community, to attend yet another public hearing in a month in order to deal with an issue that we've already spent a lot of time addressing and expressing our opposition to. So it would be nice to be able to address this and deal with it in the current meeting and not have to essentially use the process of government against the local residents to force us to use additional time on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone here who would like to speak against the continuance? Mr. Witzel, if you could, I'm sorry, was there someone else that wanted to speak against the continuance? Okay, well, then if you would please come forward and give your name and address.
Thank you, council members. Jennifer Dickey, 3019 Maple Avenue, 76707. I agree with my neighbor, Matthew Polk, that we've come to this meeting to create a combined voice, and to come again is really inconvenient when we've already come to the previous meeting. So I agree with his request that we would consider this today. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak against the continuance? Mr. Witzel, if you would return to the podium, I just have a quick question for you. But can you describe for us the reason for your request for a continuance?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm representing BlackRock, who is actually my niece's company. My niece and her husband actually went to Baylor University. They have been part of the community, and they wanted to purchase a home where they can spend some time in Waco, as they can also where they live up in Prosper, Texas. It seems really unfair to me to deny her a continuance. There's no harm to anyone in continuing this, but discontinuing it will, I believe, bring harm to my niece. This is not fair to good citizens following the law, and not allowing them to proceed. I don't see any harm in waiting to give them due process.
Okay, I'm sorry. Why could they not be here tonight to participate? That's my question, is why should we continue it? Why are we needing to continue it?
They're just not able to make this meeting, and I'm just asking for a continuance so that they can actually represent themselves.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. We'll close the public hearing on the request for the continuance. Do we have a motion on the request for continuance?
I'll move for continuance.
I'll second.
Move in favor of continuance?
Yes.
Okay, and a second?
Yeah.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I'll just say, I don't know if it's the COVID issue is why they couldn't get here, but I'll certainly give them some benefit of the doubt for not making it here tonight. And I know that she was at the Plan Commission meeting, and so I think it's not a matter of her not caring about the issue. She just couldn't be here tonight.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion?
I was just going to say, I saw the Plan Commission, and I think the neighbors have made their stance very clear, and I don't think extending or continuing the public hearing would change your mind. So, but I completely understand what you're saying, sir.
All right, please poll the council.
Holmes.
Aye.
Meek.
No.
Kennard.
Yes.
Sabido.
No.
Fairfield.
No.
Deaver.
Yes, I believe that motion fails 3-3, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
We're going to do it.
All right, so the continuance will not be granted, so we need to then open a public hearing for the item itself, correct?
That's correct, and the Plan Commission, by a vote of 7-1, recommended disapproval of special permit based on the following finding, that the proposed use would not be more objectionable to neighboring, or would be more objectionable to neighboring properties via traffic congestion, noise, fumes, vibrations, or any other characteristics than any use permitted in the zoning district without the grant of the special exception. Pursuant to state law and the zoning ordinance, if the Plan Commission does not provide a favorable recommendation on the request, it shall not be approved except by a 3/4 vote of all members of City Council. In this case, Plan Commission recommended for disapproval, therefore 3/4 vote is needed by the City Council.
Okay. So we'll open a public hearing now on the merits of this case. Mr. Witzel, would you like to speak on the merits of the case?
Thank you. As I said earlier in my earlier comments, Deanna is my niece and her husband, Joel. They met at Baylor University. They fell in love with Baylor and Waco and needed to move to the cities up in Dallas-Fort Worth to get jobs with the understanding that they would like to keep a foot in the community. So they recently purchased a home, 3107 Lasker Avenue. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home with a long paved driveway, as well as 2 carports. They fell in love with the Dean Highlands area of Waco and were really excited to be part of that community at some point once they raised their children and could move back full time. They can't spend the whole time there because of their jobs, so they wanted to at least allow one renter group at a time to rent the home periodically, and they felt that there was enough off-street parking for 4 vehicles. The property is operated, managed, and monitored on a regular basis with strict screening of guests. Lisa Scott is the local realtor in Waco and will be assisting in the property. Myself and my wife live in Woodway, will also be assisting in the property. And it also, when they come, they stay with us to come to Baylor games and come back to the community. So this would give them a good opportunity to have their own place to come back to and participate in the growth of Waco.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Witzel? All right, thank you. Again, I have a card for this item from Matthew Polk. Mr. Polk, if you'd like to speak.
Hello again. I believe I have 3 minutes for this and the other item I was going to speak against, which is Public Hearing 2020-180. So on both of these items, we, the residents of Dean Highland, longtime residents, community members, neighbors, are simply asking you to ratify the decision of the Plan Commission, which was to deny the application for a Type 2 short-term rental. In both cases, it is pretty clear to us that the entities that purchased the properties did so for investment purposes. Back Arrow, not BlackRock, as Mr. Witzel called it. Back Arrow Investments is explicitly an investment company, and at the Plan Commission meeting, the agent indicated that their stated intent was to use the property for Baylor home football games, which would be 6 weekends a year. Therefore, the implication is primary and stated intent is to rent the property out most of the time. Same applies to Public Hearing 180. Stated intent of the applicant was to use the property primarily most of the time for short-term rentals. The fact is, a Type 2 short-term rental is essentially like opening a hotel in a residential area. The property owner doesn't live on site. They don't have incentive to be attentive to how the property operates or the impact on the neighbors. At the end of the day, these individuals, these entities bought property within the framework of a certain zoning system. So we're not asking you to restrict their rights in any way. What we're asking you to do is to be consistent in applying the zoning framework that already existed when they bought the property. There's no stated right to essentially open a hotel in a residential area, which is how we see it and certainly how the community and the neighborhood would experience it, with people coming and going all the time. Many of us who came to the Plan Commission meeting have young children, including my neighbor who has a young child who would be living next door to this essentially hotel. So what we're asking you to do is simply to be consistent with the zoning framework as it already exists. All of us who purchased property in this neighborhood purchased it within that zoning framework in a residential area. Those of us who are opposing these applications, which are within 2 blocks of each other, within 2 blocks of the large number of community members who came to the Plan Commission or signed the petition against it, all of us bought our property within the framework of the current zoning, which was a residential property. Those of us who live here and have spent years in this neighborhood and in this community and have a long-term investment in this community bought that property to live in a residential neighborhood with friends and neighbors who live in that neighborhood. Whether they're renting the property full-time as a non-homeowner or whether they're homeowners like most of us who came to the Plan Commission, we intend to live with friends and neighbors who live in these properties full-time, not short-term renters who are coming and going. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else here who would like to speak in opposition to this case?
I'm going to voice a mother's perspective of a 2.5-year-old who walks our neighborhood streets, who wants to know our neighbors.
I'm sorry, I know you did earlier, but if you would give your name and address,
I'm sorry, sir.
please.
Jennifer Dickey, 3019 Maple Avenue.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. I walk the streets with my 2.5-year-old and really have committed to 76707. This is my neighborhood and these are my people. And so what we want to create is a space that's safe, that I know exactly who lives next door. I'm able to check background checks. I'm able to know what's in the community. And this isn't against anyone. It's just to retain a long-term interest for those of us who pay long-term mortgages. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else here who would like to speak against this item? All right, Mr. Witzel, if you would like to, you have a chance for a brief rebuttal. It's up to you.
Thank you. So again, I personally have nothing to gain from this but to represent my niece that I've known since she's been born. I spend a lot of time with her. I've talked to her. I know what's in her heart, and I know what she wants to do. She wanted to actually purchase this because of the connection, and quite honestly, needed to have it occupied so she could make the payments, and so eventually she could return back and live in this area. But I also want to make sure that everybody understands that I wanted to reiterate that I feel it's justly unfair that if we deny the continuance, we're really just silencing her ability to come here at this time and to represent herself. I just feel that there's no harm to the fact that we can just continue this in a future date and let her represent her own personal beliefs, and you can talk to her yourself and understand exactly what she's doing. I believe that it is fair for all citizens to be heard, and citizens that follow the law, and by those that are following the law, if they're not allowed to proceed, I believe that the system fails them.
Mr. Witzel, we've already closed that question, and just, I mean, she knew when the hearing was and didn't
Yeah.
show up.
And she
so-
couldn't make it. I just wanted to reiterate that point
I understand.
of
Okay.
fairness.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion on the merits of this case?
I'll move for approval.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I just want to say, that, again, we're looking at, we have this issue come up occasionally. It's commercial versus residential, it's property rights versus neighborhood rights. And in some places, these things work. STRs work, in some neighborhoods, they don't work. We've seen great improvement in some neighborhoods that want them and they like them. I think it still comes down to be immediate neighbors. I think at the Plan Commission, and Clint, confirm me if I'm right, there was no opposition to this one, and all neighbors were notified. Is that correct? Neighbors meaning that's within 200 foot.
Within the 200 feet, that's correct.
And in fact, one came to the Plan Commission and spoke and supported the STR.
That's correct.
So the third part to me is, and again, Dr. Polk, and I think it's very germane, your argument's very germane to the one that's coming up on Maple. But the fact that we're 3 or 4 blocks, the opposition is 3 or 4 blocks away from the permit request. I'm just not sure that makes sense, particularly when we have support from the immediate neighbors. When this lady looks out her front door, she's evidently made the effort to contact these people because nobody cared to say they didn't want it. So I'm supporting this permit just for some degree of predictability and consistency from the council and people that are asking for these permits.
I agree with my colleague.
Okay. Any further discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes?
Aye.
Meek?
Nope.
Kennard?
Yes.
Sabido?
No.
Bearfield?
No.
Deaver?
Yes, so that motion fails because it does not, it didn't even get a majority. All right, that concludes that item, public hearing 2020-178.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider a resolution granting a special permit to 1923 Austin Avenue LLC for a short-term rental type 3 in a 02 zoning district on property described as Lot 21, Block N, the Farm Lot 31 edition known as 1920 Washington Avenue, Unit 2101. By a vote of 8-0, Plan Commission recommended approval of the request based on the following findings. 1, the proposed use is consistent with a comprehensive plan. 2, the proposed use is compatible with the appropriate orderly development of the area which is located. 3, the proposed use would not be more objectionable to neighboring properties because of traffic congestion, noise, fumes, vibrations, or any other characteristics than any use permitted in the zoning district without the grant of the special exception. And that available community facilities and services, including the road system, providing access to the proposed use are adequate for the proposed use.
All right, any questions for staff? We'll open a public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak on this item? Close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Move approval. Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes?
Aye.
Meek?
Yes.
Kennard?
Yes.
Sabido? Yes. Bearfield? Deaver?
Yes, that item is approved. Public hearing 2020-179.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider a resolution granting a special permit to Deanna Baxley for a short-term rental type 2 in R1B zoning district on property described as lots 1 and 2A, block 29 of the Provident addition known as 2400 Ethel Avenue. By a vote of 8-0, Plan Commission recommended approval of the request based on the following findings. One, the proposed use is consistent with the comprehensive plan. Two, the proposed use is compatible with the appropriate orderly development of the area in which is located. Three, the proposed use will not be more objectionable to neighboring properties because of traffic congestion, noise, fumes, vibrations, or any other characteristics than any use permitted in the zoning district without the grant of the special exception, and that available community facilities and services, including the road system providing access to the proposed use, are adequate for the proposed use.
All right, we'll open a public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak on this item? I'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Motion for approval? Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes.
Aye.
Meek. Kennard.
Yes.
Sabido.
Yes.
Bearfield.
Yes.
Deaver.
Yes, that motion carries. Public hearing 2020-180.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider a resolution granting a special permit to Doug and Jennifer Joplin for a short-term rental type 2 in R1B zoning district on property described as lots A12, A13, and B14, Block 24 of the Provident addition known as 3015 Maple Avenue. By a vote of 7-1, the Plan Commission recommended disapproval of the special permit based on the following finding: that the proposed use would be more objectionable to neighboring properties because of traffic congestion, noise, fumes, vibrations, or any other characteristics than any use permitted in the zoning district without the grant of the special exception. Pursuant to state law and the zoning ordinance, if the Plan Commission does not provide a favorable recommendation, or if a protest is filed with the commission or council against an application, it should not be approved except by a 3/4 vote of all members of the council. A protest must be signed by the owners of 20% or more, either of the area of the lots included in the application or of the lots of land immediately adjoining the area of which the subject property of the application extending 200 feet from such area. In this case, the Plan Commission recommended disapproval and a protest was received, meeting the criteria. Therefore, a 3/4 city council vote is required for approval of the request.
Okay, well, any questions for staff? I'll open a public hearing. I have several cards for this. The first is applicant Madeline Joplin.
Aloha, my name is Madeline Joplin, 3015 Maple. I was unable to attend the first time due to my job. I do work on a cruise ship, which is kind of a different profession for someone. It keeps me away from home for quite some time. I'm from Dallas originally. My parents have been nice enough to let me live at home, kind of save up some money while I've been doing this job, and I finally have gotten kind of to a point where I feel like I wanted to be a homeowner. So kind of through talking to them and figuring stuff out, I spent a lot of my contract looking on Zillow, trying to find, I loved Waco as a place. I searched around a lot for not only a house that made financial sense, but for also one that kind of tugged at my heartstrings, and I found the one in the Dean Highlands area. That one kind of became the one. I talked to my parents. We kind of set up a way to kind of capture this home. And then I finally got to see it for the first time a couple weeks ago. Still love it. Want it to be a permanent residence at some point, but right now it doesn't make financial sense to let it sit vacant for the times that I am on the cruise ship. I spend a lot of time there, but I want a home base when I come home. And so in order to kind of make financial sense for me as a young person who wants to eventually move into a long-term home, the short-term rental is what kind of made a lot more sense versus having a long-term rental, because then it wouldn't be available for me to come home and live in it and have it be my home when I am in my shore leave, essentially. So I'm happy that I'm able to be here today and that I'm not on the ship away from being able to be here and be in Waco and kind of meet the people that are going to be potentially my neighbors. But like I said, this is what makes most financial sense for me right now. I, would hope that that would be something you would consider, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Looking for other folks who want to speak in favor of this. I have a card from Jennifer Joplin. Are you here to speak in favor?
Okay, I was at the last meeting with my husband, and I'm so glad Madeline gets to be here. Her sister has also come from Austin, which is why we decided on Waco. We do live in Dallas. Waco is the halfway point for us. I don't know if Madeline's going to get mad at me for telling this part. She also brought her boyfriend, but I know they're talking marriage, to the house to show him. He loves Waco as well. And he is from New York, and so we were just more than thrilled that they picked Texas instead of New York to make their home base when they're off the ship. What she said, though, is the financial side of it. It would be hard for us to cover the mortgage, or her to cover the mortgage on what she makes just on the ship. She would probably have to leave the ship and come back here and live, which I wouldn't want her to do that. But to have a short-term rental, she intends on coming to Waco to be in the house when she is here. But yeah, the short-term part. Oh, I know what I was going to say. The part when they talk about congestion and everything, I don't know if you guys know, Dean Highland Church is right across the street. There are cars that already park up and down our street 2 days out of the week. We know this because we are here throughout the time. Like today, they're painting the trim on the house. Madeline went to Home Depot to pick out paint colors today. So we are here quite a bit during the time when she is here now, when the house isn't all the way ready to live in. So, I mean, she is involved, but to take in consideration that it is a busy street anyhow, and the church does take up almost the whole block, so there is traffic there. So the congestion thing, I think, is what it is. I know the neighbors are going to come up and speak against people in the house. Our only other alternative is to rent the house out full-time until Madeline is ready to get off the ship. And I think one of the council members said, then we have a whole year of somebody in the house that then we're having to honor a lease with. We do a background check, but sometimes it's not always, you go into a lease a couple of months and then you realize, oh, okay, but you still have to honor the next 9 months. So, I don't know, does anybody have any questions? Is that a fair dialogue going back and forth? I just wish you guys would consider it. We love the house. When we first saw it online and Maddie was like, I think I want this to be my house. Yeah, there weren't ulterior motives for this. We just want her back in Texas, so.
Sure.
Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak in favor of this item? All right, I have several cards who are opposed to this. The first I have is Jennifer Dickey. I actually just have 2 cards opposed. I don't want to overstate it.
Thank you again for your time. Jennifer Dickey, 3019 Maple. I wanted to make note that I sent in a petition that was signed by all of the neighbors within 200 feet of our home. Yes, sir. It is actually 100% representation, including Highland Baptist Church Administrator who was representing the church. I want to so clarify this is not personal, and I think Madeline is a lovely woman, and I think that this is much more conceptual about what we're committed to in 76707 in our neighborhood than it is personal. And I just hope you'll consider that although I'm speaking, there's other people that I think I represent in this petition communication. I think enough has been said. Thank you.
Thank you. Matthew Pope.
I don't have much more to say other than to rebut a couple of statements that were made by the applicant. I'll underline, highlight what Jennifer said, which is we absolutely welcome new neighbors and would be glad for Madeline to move in and contribute to the neighborhood and get to know her. That'd be great. But the fact is, as it stands, it looks like there will be a lot of coming and going. And again, for all practical reasons, a hotel operating either right next door or right around the corner from our residences. In terms of long-term renters, not everyone can be a homeowner, and we're sensitive to that. And we know the great thing about Dean Highland is that it's not, quote-unquote gentrified. It's very mixed. There are homeowners and there are renters, and we understand that affordable housing is an issue in this community as in lots of communities. So we certainly don't want to prejudice the council or our neighborhood against long-term renters. So, but it's that's not a good excuse for approving a short-term rental application to simply say, well, this other option is worse. That just doesn't make sense. So if they want to rent it out long-term, that's absolutely their right. Just repeat what I said. That's their right within the current zoning framework. They don't have an assumptive right, presumptive right to a short-term rental approval. So, all we're asking you to do is let them, enjoy their property, invest in their property, use their property within the current zoning framework, not to make an exception. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak in opposition to this item? Ms. Jopling, you've got an opportunity for a rebuttal if you would like to take that.
Hi, thank you again. First, I'd like to address y'all. I'm, excited to meet you. Last time I was here, it was kind of dinner time, and I know you have young kids, so I didn't want to stop by and kind of maybe interrupt whatever time, but I was going to try and bring my boyfriend by. But yeah, so I do love, like I have said, the house, and I searched a long time online, and this one, even just today, the way that the molding is and the floors, and just you walk in and it's kind of always what I've envisioned my first home to be, and it's one I see maybe being in for a while. But I mean, on the ship, it's a different animal altogether, and I finally got into a place where I feel like this is a step that I can take, but it looks like without the short-term rental, it's going to be a lot harder on me, and I understand that, and I can assume that risk and that responsibility, but I'm just asking y'all, as maybe me coming in to become a part of Waco, to just help a young person out in trying to start a home and potentially a family. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you. All right, we'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
I'll move for disapproval of this permit.
Second.
A motion and a second to disapprove. Is there any discussion?
Oh, the same argument I made on the other one. To me, some places this works and some places it doesn't. And to me, an objective standard is what do the immediate neighbors want? And here we saw, I think 100%, if not, aren't comfortable having this kind of activity next door. So I think we should respect the neighbors as they weigh into these kind of issues on these permits. So that's why I'm voting against this permit.
Any further discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes. Meek.
Aye. Yes.
Kennard. Sabido.
Yes.
Fairfield.
Yes.
Deaver.
Yes, the motion carries and that permit is denied. Public hearing 2020-181.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider a resolution granting a special permit to Aaron Lyde for a vet clinic, kennels and boarding, and crematorium in R1B and C3 zoning. Property described as a portion of Lot 1, Block A of the Irvin addition, known as 4900 Steinbeck Bend Drive. By a vote of 8-0, Plan Commission recommended approval of the request based on the following findings. 1, the proposed use is consistent with the comprehensive plan. 2, the proposed use is compatible with the appropriate and orderly development of the area in which it is located. 3, the proposed use will not be more objectionable to neighboring properties with traffic congestion, noise, fumes, vibrations, or any other characteristics than any use permitted in the zoning district without the grant of the special exception. And 4, that available community facilities and services, including the road system, providing access to proposed use are adequate for the proposed use.
All right, any questions for staff? We'll open a public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to speak on this item? I'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Move for approval?
Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes.
Aye.
Meek. Kennard. Sabido.
Yes.
Fairfield.
Yes.
Deaver.
Yes, that motion carries. Public hearing 2020-182.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider the city's land use assumptions in the capital improvement plan associated with the creation of the impact fees for water, wastewater, and roadway capital improvements. There is no action required for this public hearing tonight.
All right, any questions for staff? We'll open a public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak on this item? I'll close the public hearing, and we'll move to public hearing 2020-183.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider an ordinance of the City of Waco, Texas, providing that the Code of Ordinances of the City of Waco be amended by revising Section 28-247 and Chapter 28 zoning of said code, providing that the zoning map shall be changed so that certain property described as Lot 6, Block 3, the Bernard Kate Ross Walton subdivision known as 910 Webster Avenue shall be changed from M2 district classification to become and be designated in the C4 district classification, providing for penalties, providing severability clause, and finding and determining that the meeting at which this ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. By a vote of 8-0, Plan Commission recommended approval of the zone change based on the following findings. 1, the proposed zoning is in conformance with the land use component of the comprehensive plan and the Imagine Waco, a plan for greater downtown. 2, the existing public infrastructure is adequate to provide for uses allowed in C4 zoning. 3, the area has been transitioning from industrial uses to commercial mixed uses. And 4, there is C4 zoning in the vicinity of subject properties.
Okay. Any questions for staff? We'll open a public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak on this item? I'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Move for approval on first reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes. Meek. Kennard.
Yes.
Sabido.
Yes.
Fairfield.
Yes.
Deaver.
Yes, that motion carries. Public hearing 2020-184.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider an ordinance of the City of Waco, Texas, providing that the Code of Ordinances of the City of Waco be amended by revising Section 28-247 and Chapter 28 zoning of said code, providing that the zoning map shall be changed so that certain property described as lots 1 and 2, Block 60, the Campbell Addition, known as 401 South 11th Street, shall be changed from M2 district classification and become and be designated in the C4 district classification, providing for penalties, providing severability clause, and finding and determining the meeting in which this ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. Again, by a vote of 8-0, Plan Commission recommended approval of the zone change based on the following findings. 1, the proposed zoning is in conformance with the land use component of the comprehensive plan and the Imagine Waco plan for greater downtown. 2, the existing public infrastructure is adequate to provide for uses allowed in C4 zoning. 3, the area is transitioning from industrial to commercial mixed use. And 4, there is C4 zoning in the vicinity of subject property.
Any questions for staff? I'll open a public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak on this item? We'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Motion for approval on first reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes. Meek.
Yes.
Kennard. Sabido. Fairfield.
Yes.
Deaver.
Yes, that motion carries. Public hearing 2020-185.
Honorable Mayor, members of the council, this is a public hearing to consider an ordinance of the City of Waco, Texas, providing that the Code of Ordinances of the City of Waco be amended by revising Section 28-247 and Chapter 28 zoning of said code, providing that the zoning map shall be changed on certain property described as lots 1 through 12 and Lot A, Block A of the Farm Lot 11 addition known as 301 and 325 South 6th Street shall be changed from M2 and C5 district classification and become and be designated in the C4 district classification, providing for penalties, providing a severability clause, and finding and determining that the meeting in which this ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. By a vote of 8-0, Plan Commission recommended approval of the zone change based on the following findings. 1, proposed zoning is conformance with the land use component of the comprehensive plan, the Imagine Waco plan for greater downtown. 2, existing public infrastructure is adequate to provide for uses allowed in C4 zoning. 3, the area has been transitioning from industrial uses to commercial mixed uses. And 4, there is C4 zoning in the vicinity of subject property.
All right, are there any questions for staff? I'll open a public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak on this item? We'll close the public hearing. Is there a motion?
Motion for approval on first reading.
Second.
Any discussion? Please poll the council.
Holmes.
Aye.
Meek.
Yes.
Kennard.
Yes.
Sabido.
Yes.
Fairfield.
Yes.
Deaver.
Yes. The motion carries. All right, we have one resolution that has been removed from the consent agenda and will be voted on separately. It's Resolution 2020-195, and I'll ask our City Manager, Wiley Stem, to introduce this item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's my pleasure and honor to recommend Chief Gregory Summers as our new fire chief here in Waco. Greg, I think he's still here. Greg, stand up, please. As I mentioned earlier, it's 34 years of service in the fire department in Little Rock, Arkansas. 9 of those years as the chief. His tenure, he achieved ISO Class 1 in Little Rock and also achieved the accreditation standard, a distinction only held by 87 fire departments in the United States. He is very proud of some of the work that he did in the department to increase diversity there in Little Rock, and he is a member of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, has been married to his lovely wife, Jeanette, for 34 years. Jeanette, welcome. He has 3 adult children, 3 grandchildren, holds a BS degree in emergency management and an AAS degree in fire science. I'm really excited to recommend him for confirmation to the council.
All right. Is there a motion?
Motion for approval.
Second.
Any discussion?
Welcome to Waco.
Sir, we're glad you're here, and we hope you'll find a great home here.
Yes.
Thank you.
And that Mark Stodola, the former mayor of Little Rock, says hi, and that we got a good one. So welcome. Good. Yes, know him well. Yeah. Glad to have you.
Very good. All right, please poll the council.
Holmes. Aye. Meek.
Yes.
Kennard.
Yes.
Sevito.
Yes.
Fairfield.
Yes.
Deaver.
Yes. Motion carries. We received registration cards for the following agenda item, Resolution 2020-187. I have 2 cards here. The first is Justin Edwards, if you'd like to speak.
Hello, my name is Justin Edwards from the Hilton Waco at 113 South University Parks Drive, right next door here. And thank y'all for taking the time this evening. So I'm just in reference to supporting the Tourism Public Improvement District that we're putting it forward. So tourism public improvement districts are generally controlled by a board of directors that is solely composed by area hoteliers. This means that the hotel industry that raises the funds also participates in spending of the funds, which is a 2% fee that we collect on the guest folio from the guest. A great example of this is the Dallas Tourism District. Now generates in excess of $15 million annually to promote conventions and increase business and leisure travel to the city, and it's doing this with unparalleled success. Each dollar that has been expended in its incentives by the TPID has generated an average of $26 in room nights. The district has been instrumental in doubling the city's conversion rate for securing conventions, and it also has facilitated a 17% increase in occupancy on the average throughout the city. So we're looking at for every dollar spent on the TPID, we're getting about a $26 return, and then a 17% increase is what they've seen. So by allowing this, and Dallas started this in 2012, and they also renewed it in 2016. They renewed without any type of opposition from anyone in the city. The TPID in place would be a huge benefit for us as hoteliers and the city as well. This would allow us to go after larger conventions, us to be able to give them even larger incentives in the market. So it's just a huge deal in our eyes. Also, naturally, by being able to bring in the larger conventions, that means more hotel rooms, more nights, more people staying, more people at restaurants, more people in museums, and so on. So the overall impact would be tremendous. So other than that, I just thank you for y'all's support.
Great, thank you. The next card I have is from Donna Holbrook. Donna, are you here? While Donna's coming down, I'm just going to take this chance to say thank you to the city secretary and her staff for all the work they've done to get us compliant with the COVID-19 recommendations. She totally instituted a new system of how to handle the cards. We have her assistant, Michelle, wiping down the podium every time somebody leaves, and everybody that comes up here, thanks you for that, and working out the spacing here. Thank you all very much. We won't take anything away from your time, so go ahead, please.
Thank you. My name is Donna Holbrook. I'm also a general manager at the Holiday Inn Express here in Waco. The company that I work for, we also have the Town Place Suites that is also in Legends Crossing. The TPID is important not only to the hoteliers, but to the city itself, and especially at the time we're at now.
Right.
We need every opportunity to bring growth in for our restaurants, keeping employment for our employees, and this money will help us, as Justin spoke about, bring in larger convention centers. And we truly hope that this will pass for everyone's sake, not just the hoteliers. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a motion on this item?
Move for approval?
Second.
Any discussion?
I agree with them.
Right.
Okay.
Let's get this rolling.
Right.
Yeah, let's get it done.
This is a great example of an industry group coming together and
Yeah.
being willing to impose this on themselves in order to make the entire industry better, and it helps our city at the same time.
Absolutely.
All right. We've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please poll the council.
Yes.
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 Yes, that motion carries. The consent agenda tonight consists of resolutions 2020-186 through 2020-211, with the exceptions of 2020-187 and 2020-195. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Move approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Discussion. Please poll the council.
Holmes. Meade.
Yes.
Kennard.
Yes.
Sevilla.
Yes.
Fairfield.
Yes.
Deaver.
Yes, that motion carries. We have one ordinance tonight on second reading. It's ordinance 2020-212.
An ordinance amending Chapter 13 Licenses, Permits, and Business Regulations of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Waco, Texas, by amending Section 13-471 of Article 8, Bed and Breakfast Facilities and Short-Term Rental Facilities, to address parking requirements, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing a severability clause, providing for inclusion in the code, providing for penalties, and finding and determining the meeting at which this ordinance is passed is open to the public as required by law. This ordinance was approved by a 4-1 council vote on first reading on March 3rd, 2020.
Okay, we have one card on this item from Dana Gage. Is Dana still here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you, council. This is, you're probably tired of seeing me hear about this issue. My name is Dana Gage. My son Riley and I operate a short-term rental on Clay Avenue called Poppy and Rye House. This is now my third time to speak to you guys about this issue, and obviously I feel very strongly about it. I really have grave concerns about not allowing my guests to back on to, or requiring my guests to back onto busy streets like Clay Avenue, primarily for safety reasons. And, you know, there's a couple of reasons why I feel so strongly about this, and this is the reason I keep coming back. My son and I are invested here. I sold my family farm in Oklahoma to buy this home in Waco. We're building a small business and we're making a go of it here. My son fell in love with Waco during his college years, and he's operating our Airbnb, and he is really invested in making sure that everyone who comes to our city has a good experience here. Secondly, I'm a safety girl. Operating an Airbnb is not my full-time gig. I run a nonprofit dedicated to safety, primarily to water safety and drowning prevention, but I believe very strongly in safety, and I do believe my guests are in danger by being required to back out onto Clay Avenue versus being able to park on the street. I am definitely here to hopefully keep the momentum going and reinforce my strong support for allowing the short-term rental guests on large artery streets like Clay Avenue to be able to park in front of the house that they are renting. And the three primary reasons are, number one, embolden, in all caps, safety. Backing onto a busy downtown street from a narrow driveway like ours is simply unsafe. It's downtown, it's in the epicenter of the heart of Waco, and my guests who are paying to rent our home should have the same privilege to park in front of our home just like a visitor or a resident of downtown Waco. Secondly is just enforceability. It's hard to see if the car parked in front of our street belongs to the person who is renting the home or if it's just someone who's visiting the home. So from a practical point of view, it just makes sense. Let's let the guests who are on our busy streets of Waco who are investing their time to come here have the privilege of parking there, primarily for safety, but also because of practicality. Thanks, y'all.
All right, thank you. That's all the cards we have. Is there a motion on this item?
I'll move for approval on second reading.
Second.
Discussion. Please poll the council.
Councilmember Meade is not affidavit of substantial interest on this.
Thank you.
Holmes.
Aye.
Kennard.
Yes.
Sevilla.
Yes.
Fairfield.
Yes.
Deaver.
Yes, that motion carries. We will now open the hearing of visitors. During the hearing of visitors section of the agenda, we provide an opportunity for any citizen to present concerns or address issues that are not matters for consideration listed on the agenda. Council is unable to conduct discussion, but will listen, ask staff to look into concerns, and provide follow-up. Please provide registration information so that staff can contact you if necessary. If you have handouts, please let us know at the beginning of your presentation, and staff will distribute those to the council. If you are unable to approach the podium due to physical limitations, a microphone is available to be brought to you. I have one card tonight, and it is Isaac Sadi. Isaac, are you? If you would come down to the podium. When you get to the podium, if you would, give us your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Isaac Sadi. I live at 6541 Crystal Court, 76712. And I'm here addressing about an ordinance to reduce the, an ordinance to ban the distribution of plastic bags within Waco. Ugh, it's just one plastic bag. I'll bring my own the next time. Literally every person ever. I'm pretty sure we're all guilty of this, including myself, but we've fallen underneath the societal norm that it is all right to pollute our planet because it's just one person. But whenever I walk down Cameron Park and I see this beautiful place infested with plastic bags hung up in trees and flowing down the river stream, this is time for a change. So the city of Waco should create an ordinance to ban the use of plastic bags and give future generations the beautiful Waco we fell in love with for the following reasons. The first is the environmental benefits. If we go further down south into the city of Austin, we see in a 2015 report commissioned by the city, citizens use nearly 200 million fewer bags in the year collectively. In that same report, Austin's Watershed Protection Department reported an overwhelming decrease of water littering waterways and clogging drainage areas. Austin's Park Foundation also reported a 90% decrease of plastic bags littering park areas and trailways. But if we go to California, the New York Times stated in May of 2019 that the plastic bag usage after the ban decreased by 72%. Although the city of Waco is much smaller, we are doing our part for the world by creating this ordinance. But we're talking about the impact on Waco itself, correct? Charles Darwin was correct on the ability for living things to adapt. As we can see in the Waco trip of August 6 of 2019, once citizens were given recycling bins in 2017, recycling in Waco increased by 50%. This was beneficial to the economy because 1/3 of fiber productions are sold to Mexico and 90% of Waco's commercial recycling is sold domestically, so it benefits the economy. What many people don't know about recycling is that the items have to be recycled loosely and not in plastic bags, so therefore we're losing money by this. But if we ban the use of plastic bags, we'll be getting more money and the economy will benefit, and we can use this through other issues such as gentrification. But finally, it's for the health of our own citizens. I'm pretty sure we've all heard that CBC report saying that there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish by 2050, but this is not an issue that should be taken lightly, considering that many essential nutrients are found in the sea, such as fish and omega-3s. And although you can get these through other resources, it's not in adequate amounts. So therefore, the city of Waco should consider an ordinance to ban the distribution of plastic bags. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Is there anything else you need by any chance, or
I'm sorry.
is there anything else you need by any chance?
We can't conduct discussion, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there anyone else present who would like to speak during the hearing of visitors? Seeing no one, we'll close the hearing of visitors. Are there any council member reports on committees or boards or commission liaison visits?
Not necessarily any commission boards report, but I do want to take a moment to reiterate the fact that as we are in these uncertain times and with safety protocols, this is a fine opportunity for you to fill out your census online.
Here.
So please feel free to visit whyaccountwaco.org, my2020census.gov. Fill out your census. You can do it online. You should have received your barcodes in the mail, but if you have not, you can do it with your address. But this is a prime opportunity while you are spending time reflecting to fill out your census, because this is the one opportunity we have to be counted for the next 10 years.
And you can do it in your first language as well.
That's right.
Very good. Very well said. Thank you all. We appreciate the fact that these are trying times. This is a great city with great people, and we will get through this.
Absolutely.
We're adjourned, 7:01. Thank you.